How many button presses does it take to beat Donkey Kong Bananza? A seemingly simple question that is unbelievably difficult to answer. The rules are simple. I can't press any of these buttons unless there's no other way to progress. Every time I do press a button, 1 point will be added to the overall score. And finally, any advantages allowed, such as assist mode and glitches/unintended skips. Speedrunners press an estimated 3,000 plus buttons to complete the game, and casual players will more than likely press at least 3 times that amount. But today, we will go from layer to layer to whittle down the number of buttons required in each one to hopefully find out the definitive amount of buttons needed to beat the entire game.
Please leave a like and subscribe.
We start the game in assist mode, which we won't count as an input as the game hasn't really started yet. We choose assist mode due to it allowing us to regain health while standing still. After the first cutscene, we are prompted to punch. Usually, to bypass this, you need to punch at least 3 times by pressing Y. But we have a secret technique up our sleeve. Motion controls. If playing with Joy-Cons, swinging either the left or right one will make Donkey Kong punch. Once we've broken through the wall, we just swing the Joy-Cons some more to break through this wall and end up in this room. You're supposed to go down by downward punching with B a bunch, but instead we break the banana, which reveals some gold, and then keep punching the gold. Once a hole is made in the first layer, we climb and punch our way back up, and then continuously fall down it until the weight of Donkey Kong eventually breaks through the stone. Then we just gather some gold, as we need a bunch later on, and make our way to the bananas. After breaking one, another cutscene plays, and right after this, a rock crushes Donkey Kong. This is where our first button presses come in, as we need to press X 3 times to break the rock. Moving forward, we motion control to break through the dirt, damage boost over the thorns to get to the other side, and then climb up the side to avoid the barrel. After going down the path on the right, we meet Odd Rock. Here we press and hold ZR to pull Odd Rock out of the ground. Holding buttons in this game is vital to save unnecessary inputs later on. So every time I'm holding one, I'll show it visually in the corner. We then chase down Odd Rock, and as we're holding ZR, Donkey Kong will randomly rip chunks from the ground when we fall from any height. So if he's ever just carrying something, that's why. Anyways, we defeat these enemies and chat with Odd Rock. Here, we press and hold L to sing to them, and we literally keep this button held for like 80% of the run. So you'll probably notice Pauline and Donkey Kong singing a lot. Once we calm Odd Rock down, we have to press A 3 times to skip a dialogue box and 2 other prompts. After this, we need to get up to the next section of the level, but everywhere surrounding it is slippery, so we can't just climb up. So as we're holding L still, we can break this Terror Voider, which reveals this barrel, and then we break around the platform, climb up the pink metal, which gives us just enough height to hop inside without jumping, and then we press A to fire the barrel. Once up here, we just carefully climb up this wall, edge around this bit of metal, break around this barrel section to sneak around to this wall, and then get to the top. We then defeat this enemy with motion controls, punch the key, and break the purple stake, and then we progress to the next layer. That's Ingot Isle done with 9 inputs. Once in the Lagoon layer, we walk along the left side towards the back left corner, and as we're still holding ZR, we can easily grab some boom rocks by jumping on top of it. With this, we can start to climb this tower. For some reason, whilst carrying something, motion controls are a lot more precise, so shaking them upwards will make Donkey Kong do an overhead attack. Higher up the tower is another concrete blockade, so we just grab some more boom rock and blow this up too. Now we can just break the purple stake and head down. In this next part, we want to climb along this wire mesh, which usually requires a jump, but instead we break some stone, push some debris up to the platform, and then position it right against the ledge. We then climb the wall below it, and then climb up the ledge, and the extra height provided by the debris is just enough to make us reach the wire mesh. Now we climb along, defeat this boom rock guy, pick up some boom rock, and then let go of ZR so that we can repress ZR in order to throw it towards the concrete plug thing. Next, we drop down and make our way to the next one. Here we just continuously punch this boom rock block until a piece of the debris lands in a convenient enough spot to punch it into the second concrete plug thing. Now that the water level has risen, we cross the bridge, completely ignore the Kong Elder, and begin to climb these shipping containers. Usually you have to bring a third concrete plug thing in order to raise the water level again, which creates a path towards the ancient record. But that sounds like way too many inputs, so instead we climb to the top of these shipping containers, fall off, and perfectly land on the small island with the record. We then press and hold ZR to grab the ancient record. For some reason we can't just jump off, so to get back to the shipping containers we have to climb this, and then fall off whilst motion controlling to the side in order to stay in the air a little bit longer. Now we just make our way back to the Kong Elder and motion control to place the ancient record. Shortly after this, we are prompted to hold L and R, but luckily we can also just use motion controls to bypass this. While shaking both the left and right Joy-Cons, Donkey Kong will bang his chest, and we can use this to transform and save a bunch of inputs. After Pauline is freed, we are prompted to skip her dialogue 5 times by pressing A. The tutorial for the Kong Bananza is relatively casual and can be completed just by punching with motion controls, but once out, we're faced with a whopping 29 dialogue boxes boxes we have to skip by pressing A. For some reason, this game has an ungodly amount of dialogue that we need to skip through, so a big chunk of our inputs are unfortunately going to be because of this. Anyways, we progress forward, break the purple stake, and eventually meet the first proper boss of the game, Pika Bruiser. This boss is actually really easy, as you can just motion control to punch with the Kong Bananza and defeat them. That's Lagoon layer done with 36 inputs. Hilltop layer is pretty simple. We just go over to the big stone bananas, break the Terror Voider, and then head towards the Construct Tone. In order to progress forward, we need 2,999 gold to pay the Construct Tone to clear the path down. So we take this time to farm up a bunch of gold, as we're going to need an additional 9,999 gold later on. We also want to find an apple juice for later on too. So we just transform into the Kong Bananza with motion controls, and break a bunch of rocks and open a bunch of treasure chests. After repeating this to an excruciating degree, we talk to the Construct Tone and skip through 11 dialogue boxes with A. With the way forward now cleared, we head down, break the purple stake, and progress to the next layer. That's Hilltop layer done with 11 inputs. Right at the start of the canyon layer, we're met with a minecart, and as the gap between the islands is too wide, we climb on in and press A to ride. Usually, you're now meant to enter another minecart, fight Grumpy Kong, speak to him, enter 3 more minecarts, and then fight Mad Mixer, which would take an unbelievably high amount of inputs. So instead, we do a little trick jump to skip all of this. As we're still holding down ZR, we grab some dirt, get onto this rock, and jump off with A. We then press ZL twice to quickly surf turf and unsurf turf. Swing our Joy-Cons to the side to swing the dirt, jump again to gain more height, and finally press and hold ZL to roll while shaking the Joy-Cons to punch. When done successfully, we can make it across this gap and skip most of the level. We can also let go of ZR for now. Next, we just climb up to this tower, break the concrete with the Kong Bananza and motion control punches, break the stake, drop down, and drop down again to enter the Stomp and Clomper boss fight. Once again, this boss is pretty easy with the Kong Bananza and punching with motion controls. But we just have to be a little bit careful not to break the ground below them, otherwise our punches won't be able to reach them. Anyways, after that, we jump down and progress to the next layer. That's Canyon layer done with 6 inputs. The divide has nothing really noteworthy happen. We just punch the shifting colour blocks with motion controls and go towards the forest path on the right, as we want the ostrich Bananza first. So we hop down to the forest layer. We follow the intended path and punch some fruit to bridge gaps, and sometimes swim in the poison. After making our way along the main path, we fall down into the poison and quickly swim towards the wall of the Eggshell Hotel. Luckily, there's just enough time to reach it before dying. We now need to get the ancient record pieces. So for the first one, we drop down into here, punch this fruit free, and slowly roll it into position before punching it across to where the record piece is. We then just walk across and pick up the record with ZR. After placing it down, we go to the floor below the previous one, and simply break the Terror Voider, pick up the ancient record piece, and climb back up to the Eggshell Hotel before placing in the second piece. As we've been holding the ZL button, the Ostrich Bananza will just fly when we walk off a ledge, so the tutorial is completed with relative ease. Once out, we skip through 7 dialogue boxes with the Ostrich Elder, and then progress towards the next sublayer. This bit is pretty standard. We just have to break 3 poison things, which is made quite easy with us flying around with the ZL button still held. Once the poison level has been lowered all the way, we can move on to the next sublayer. In order to fight the final boss of this level, we must break these red thorny vines, and we do so by flying over the downward punch button and pressing B once directly over it. This clears the path forward for us to begin the fight with Abracadabra. This fight is usually pretty simple, as you can just jump over the poison obstacles as they come towards you, but as jumping would cost too many inputs, we instead make use of the Ostrich Bananza and the many updrafts surrounding the area. So we just use the updrafts to get up, and then punch them a bunch using motion controls. With the boss defeated, we now dive to the next layer. That's forest layer done with 10 inputs. We're only in the junction briefly, so I'll keep this short. We drop down and break the Terror Voider below, which creates a bridge towards the main island. Across from the forest path is the freezer path, and usually you can easily skip having to go to the freezer layer by upgrading the Ostrich Bananza to glide once the flying runs out. But, as doing so would cost way too many inputs, and the fact that the Zebra Bananza will be extremely important later on towards the end, we will continue down the intended path. So we punch the elevator gong, skip 6 bits of dialogue with A, and then teleport back to the divide, costing 2 more A presses. That's the junction part 1 done with 8 inputs. The divide is the exact same as last time, however now we go to the left towards the freezer path instead. Once in the freezer layer, we walk down the intended path. Here there's a downward punch button, but thankfully we can just ignore it entirely and instead break through the massive wall of ice with motion controls. Once inside this area, there's multiple icicles that you're supposed to chuck something at to make them fall down, making it possible to cross. Instead, however, we transform into the ostrich Bananza, and as we're still holding down ZL, we can fly across to skip these entirely. This is basically why we went to the forest layer first, as it makes multiple obstacles in this layer easily skippable. After this, we then need to get 3 ancient record pieces. We first go towards the far right side to get the first one. We do so by waiting for some small icicles to fall and melt the lava, and just damage boost through the lava to get to the Terror Voider. Once broken, there's a gap of lava between us and the record piece. So we just punch this conveniently placed block of ice and push the debris into the lava to forge a path. We then pick up the record piece with ZR and backtrack to place it. For the next ancient record piece, we simply just damage boost through this lava lake, pick up the record with ZR, wait for our health to go back up, and then damage boost to get back across before placing the piece down. The third and final record piece is probably the most complicated. Usually you just hand clap to raise a platform and proceed to parkour around the moving platforms to get across. But as we have access to the ostrich Bananza, we can just fly over to this island, climb up and then fly off, and then just maneuver across the moving platforms until we're at the record piece. We press and hold ZR to pick it up and then place it down. We complete the Zebra Bananza tutorial with ease, and then skip 5 dialogue boxes with A when talking to the Zebra Elder afterwards. Next, we need to get back up to the sub-layer above, which we do by falling off this wall, punching to preserve airtime, and pressing B to dive mid-air and punching into the barrel below. We then press A to fire us up into the sub-layer above. Now we transform into the Zebra Bananza and continue down the intended path. In the room at the top, there's some ice blocking the way down to the boss. Usually you just press B a bunch to downward punch into it, but instead we use motion controls to punch these conveniently placed banandium root pieces into the ice, causing it to explode. We drop down and enter the fight with Poppycon. This fight is pretty easy, as we can just punch her until she's defeated. We then need to speak to her, costing 4 A presses to skip all the dialogue. After punching the key and opening the way down, we punch some of the ice that's laying around and push the debris into the hole. Then we fall down and push the ice into the lava to melt it, as the intended strategy of guiding the small ice cubes down here costs way too many inputs. Once enough lava is melted, we can just grab a rock from the ground, as we're still holding ZR, and shake the Joy-Cons downwards to break the ground beneath us. In this next area, you're once again supposed to guide some small ice cubes to melt the lava blocking the way forward, which also takes way too many inputs. So instead, we head to here, grab some gold, damage boost towards the lava wall, and swing our Joy-Cons to the side to break the wall. We then wait to fully heal and transform into the Zebra Bananza before damage boosting and running across the lava lake. This is where the apple juice we got earlier comes in, as about halfway through running across the lava, we'll run out of hearts, and the apple juice can fully heal us once again, giving us just enough health to get across. We now just drop down and begin the fight with Inflaminite. This fight was relatively tricky, as the timing to deal damage to the boss is very tight. Basically, once you punch them out of their rocky outer shell, they quickly begin to run away and build up with collapsing ice that only the Zebra Bananza can climb. But in the third phase, there's a small gap at the start which requires a jump to cross. So for this phase, we have to punch the boss and then quickly run to where they're going to start to build up, and then punch them before they get the chance to. With the boss defeated, we then progress to the next layer. That's freezer layer done with 14 inputs. Once we're back in the junction, we drop down, break the Terror Voider, and then make our way over to Void Kong. After a little cutscene, we then walk back to the elevator and warp to Hilltop with 2 A presses. In Hilltop layer, we beat up Void Kong a bunch until he leaves, and we once again use the elevator to warp to the Lagoon layer with 2 A presses. In Lagoon layer, we once again beat up Void Kong a bunch until he leaves again. We use the elevator for the final time to walk back to the junction with 2 more A presses. Now that we're back to where we started, we can finally fight Void Kong properly. In this section, Void Kong is way too high up to punch, but if you just walk away from him and trigger the next lava attack, when you walk back he'll just fly past you, bypassing the required punch. In the final stage of the fight, we just need to break all 3 Terror Voiders, which is easy enough when using motion controls to punch. After all 3 are destroyed, we beat up Void Kong and temporarily defeat him. All that's left to do is hop inside of this barrel, which we do by climbing the fractone nearby, and press A to fire us down the hole. That's the Junction Part 2 done with 7 inputs. The resort layer is actually really cool, as we can just swim over towards the big watermelon and climb up the stone pillar below it. There are 2 ridges that jut out, so to get onto them, we break around them, and then climb around until eventually we're just beneath the watermelon itself. Once here, we can just shake the Joy-Cons up to break the watermelon above us, and then just punch our way towards the purple stake. We break that and drop down. That's resort layer done with 0 inputs. In the Tempest layer, we immediately drop down and break the Terror Voider before entering the first Blusterwing boss fight. As we're still holding ZR, we can continuously pick up the sand on the ground that Blusterwing spits out, and whenever they do their spin move, we can shake our Joy-Cons up to hit their wings. This is actually unbelievably difficult to do, but it is possible. Once down though, you're supposed to press B to downward punch into them, which would cost a lot of unnecessary inputs. So instead, we shake our Joy-Cons to punch the side of them, and repeat this entire process of picking up sand, hitting it into their wings, and then punching the side of them until they're at half health, in which case a single downward punch with B is required to finish them off. After that, Blusterwing flies off and leaves behind an updraft, which we have to hold B to dive through. In this area, we now have to get both ancient record pieces. So we drop down, pick up the first one with ZR, and wall climb across to this barrel that we fall into from this statue and press A to fire. We then place the record piece before falling down the hole and grabbing the second record piece by pressing and holding ZR. We once again go up the same barrel by pressing A, and then place the record piece. The Elephant Bananza tutorial is once again easily completed, and the conversation afterwards with the Elephant Elder takes 16 A presses to skip all the dialogue. Just as a little update, that's 81 inputs so far that are purely just dialogue skipping and not actual gameplay. We now drop back down the hole and transform into the Elephant Bananza. As we're holding ZR, the Elephant Bananza will just continuously suck in as long as we have breath. So we suck in the key, punch it, punch the purple stake, and drop down the hole. Now we fight Blusterwing for the second time, with this battle being quite a bit more difficult than the last. The main reason being that Blusterwing no longer spits out sand, but instead gold that we can't pick up. Instead, we suck up a bunch of it with the Elephant Bananza and press ZR to pull out a ball and press ZR again to throw it at the wing. We do this again with another 2 ZR inputs until they fall to the ground. Once on the floor, we quickly press right on the D-pad, punch their side with the motion controls 3 times, and then press B 6 times to downward punch into them until they once again fly away. Another updraft is left behind and we hold B to get past. This rising platform will only go up if you remove the debris attached. So we punch the stone off and rise up. Next, we want to cross the zip line, so we just press and hold ZR to grab the stone ball and go down. Once here, we just damage boost through some electric material and go down another zip line. We now press left on the D-pad to switch back to the Elephant Bananza, and as ZR is still being held down, we suck up the electric material to get through. After that, we use more zip lines and rising platforms until we reach the end with the floating material. Here, we transform into the Elephant Bananza, suck up a bunch of floating material, transform back into Donkey Kong, and pick up some floating material to float up to the island above. Then we transform back into the Elephant Bananza and press ZR to pull out some floating material to make it up to the top. We then dive punch down another updraft to enter the final fight with Blusterwing. This fight is a little more simple than the last, as when they do their spinny move, some blocks fall out of the twisters. So we just pick one up with ZR and throw it at their wings with ZR. We do this again with 2 more ZR inputs, causing them to fall through the floor. Last thing to do is hold B to dive punch, defeating Blusterwing. Then we progress to the next layer. That's Tempest layer done with 43 inputs. Landfill layer is literally just one big sandbox where we have to get to the bottom. So we transform into the Elephant Bananza, press and hold ZR, and then just suck up all the dirt until we're all the way at the bottom. After breaking this purple stake, we enter the Re-Pika Bruiser boss fight. This fight was actually ridiculously hard, as there's a stupid amount of these little squid things that you need to shake off by punching, which is extremely hard whilst you're holding ZR, as you'll randomly start ripping stuff out of the ground and can't punch to get them off. Anyways, we transform into the Elephant Bananza, suck off all the mud surrounding the boss, and eventually get lucky enough to climb the hill without getting swarmed to beat up the boss. With them defeated, we now just progress to the next layer. That's Landfill layer done with only 1 input. The racing layer is yet another small gimmick level where you race against Diddy and Dixie Kong, but that would take up way too many inputs, so instead we transform into the Elephant Bananza, suck up some floating material, and then press ZR to pull some out and float over to the racetrack. Once over here, we walk over to the other side, grab some more floating material as Donkey Kong, and float towards the island with the Victory Cup. Now we just climb up the Victory Cup, shake the Joy-Con to punch our way through the gold, and then punch the purple stake before jumping down the hole. That's racing layer done with 2 inputs. Right after falling into the Radiance layer, we bait this enemy into breaking this concrete pillar, which exposes some light, making it possible to defeat them. Doing so will give us a key, which we need to go down to the next sublayer. Now we need to get 4 ancient record pieces. So we just go into the room to the left of the Snake Elder, grab the record piece with ZR, and then place it. Next, we drop down into here, damage boost through these spiky vines, and pick up the second record piece with ZR again. As the walls are slippy, to get back up, we need to use the barrel. So to get in, we walk into this wall, which makes DK jump slightly, which gives us just enough enough height to land inside. We then press A to fire and then place the record piece. We now go to the right of the Snake Elder and walk off this ledge. We then perfectly land on top of the third record piece, press and hold ZR to grab it and shake our Joy-Cons to the side whilst falling to extend our height to avoid touching the platform below us. Doing so, we'll use a balloon once we fall to the bottom and place us back to the last known location Donkey Kong was on solid ground, which was right back up at the top. We then just place down the record piece. As ZR is now held, we go behind the Snake Elder, grab a rock, and then press and hold A to zipline across. We then perfectly time the rock breaking with us landing on a light, and we grab some of that before automatically being placed back onto the zipline. Once on the other side, we press and hold ZR to grab the final record piece and zipline all the way back before placing it down. As A is being held, the Snake Bananza will continuously be charging a jump, and once we let go, we can precisely jump over these two ledges and just one more A press will clear the next wall. Once completed, we speak to the Snake Elder, costing us 18 A presses to skip all the dialogue boxes. We also hold A on the last dialogue box. After that, we do this weird glitch to get on top of the raised walkway, which you usually have to jump to using the Snake Bananza. We walk over to the end, climb on top of the cage, and transform into the Snake Bananza before letting go of A, making us jump into the key. We punch the key, break the purple stake, and move on to the next sublayer. Shortly after this, we're met with what I call the jump room. We transform into the Snake Bananza and hug this wall to get on top. We then just press A here, 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 and here. On this last little gap, we damage boost to get across, and then climb up this wall, slide down, and break the Terror Voider whilst falling. We can now finally let go of the L button, as that's the final Terror Voider we need to break in the game. Now we walk into this barrel, and press A to go up. In here, we can just turn around, climb up, break the squares of light on the ceiling, which causes some debris to fall down, which we can use to defeat the enemy with the key. We then flip the switch to turn on the light. Just after this, we press right on the D-pad to switch to the Elephant Bananza, and suck up some of the light material. This will be useful later on in the layer. But for now, we drop down, punch this panel, and begin the fight with Poppy Kong, which is pretty much the same as last time, with us just using motion controls to punch her and eventually defeat her. We now need to speak to Poppy Kong and press A 8 times to skip all the dialogue. After punching the key and dropping down, we just progress through the level as intended, with us punching these guys for keys and breaking the purple stakes to move forward. Here, you're supposed to continuously flip the light switch to alternate between cloud and solid platforms, but instead we cross the bridge, fall off here to land on the platform below, climb back up and cross this bridge to here. As we previously sucked up some light material with the Elephant Bananza, we can just transform and press ZR to pull some out, which lets us fall into the next room. We now just break the purple stake and go down to the next sublayer. Here, there's some crystal blocking the hole to the boss, so we just break some nearby stone and keep punching the debris into the crystal until it eventually breaks. Next up is Grumpy Kong. This fight was pretty tricky, as you're meant to break the ceiling to reveal light, which will make Grumpy Kong vulnerable, but luckily there's already some light in the arena, so instead we climb onto the side of him, which forces him to jump backwards, and we do this enough times until he eventually jumps into some light. Once he does, we climb up and punch his protective mask off and continuously punch him until he's defeated. That's Radiance layer done in 41 inputs. In the Groove layer, we begin in a prison cell after Pauline is eaten by the Harmon Eel. Usually you have to press B a bunch to break the floor beneath us to progress, but instead we keep falling off the ceiling to make a dent in the floor with DK's fat bum. Break some stone and then keep punching the debris into the dirt until a hole big enough for us to fit through appears. Once down here, we could go the intended path, which would involve a bunch of dialogue boxes with Poppy Kong, which seems like a waste of time and inputs. So instead we pick up some dirt with ZR, climb on this grate and position ourselves in this precise place, and then press ZR again to throw the dirt in this precise location. If done correctly, we can then climb and push our head into the dirt to clip through the grate. We now just punch through the dirt, climb up here, punch some gold, and then climb up the gold to hop into the barrel before pressing A to fire up. Now we're in the main area, and instead of going into each music source room and wasting a bunch of inputs, we do a similar glitch instead. So we walk towards the final music source room, position ourselves in this precise place, press ZR whilst facing the wall to grab a piece of the fractone, and then press ZR again to throw the fractone piece in this precise location. We once again climb and push our heads into the fractone piece and clip through the wall. We then just walk through the tunnel, get to the end, wait for this falling wall enemy to rise again so that we can get up here and break the Terror Voider. After that, we go back, break the record free, and talk to this fractone and make sure we pick specific dialogue options such as yes and is there a tunnel, costing us 4 A presses. He opens up a path blocked by gold, which usually requires a B press to break through, but instead we punch some gold from the previous room and push it all the way to here. Then we just punch it to break the gold blocking the way. We now just punch our way through the entire section until we eventually get to the other side. For some reason, only doing the third music source room tricks the game into thinking you've done the previous 2, most likely because you can't actually access the third room until you've completed the other ones. Anyways, we walk over to Poppycong and talk to her, which costs us 22 A button presses. The dialogue in this game is genuinely crazy. Anyways, after all that talking, Poppycong makes a barrel appear out of thin air and we just climb up the wall below it to get enough height to hop inside. We then just press and hold A to fire ourselves into the mouth of the Harmony. Inside, we have to press B to punch back these rocks. Once the surrounding purple things are destroyed, we punch into Pauline to save her. That's groove layer done in 33 inputs. Once in the feast layer, we make our way towards the first burger switch. We climb the side of it, which gives us just enough air to then press B to dive punch into the button. After that, we make our way over to the far left burger switch at the back of the level. Here, we press left on the D-pad to switch to the snake Bananza, let go of A to jump up, and once we're high enough, we press left on the D-pad again to switch over to the ostrich Bananza. And as we've been holding ZL this whole time, we can fly over to the moving platforms. After that, we simply make our way up and dive punch into the second burger switch by pressing B. Next, we fly over to the Ferris wheel, and once at the top, we transform back into the ostrich Bananza and fly over to the burger switch where you usually use the zebra Bananza to walk up. Once on the roof, we press B to dive punch all the way down to press our third burger switch. For our next burger switch, we walk all the way down to here, transform into the ostrich Bananza again, fly over to these fries frying in the oil, and then fly over to this platform. We now just climb up and press B to dive punch into the burger switch. For our final burger switch, we make our way to the Mad Mixer Remix boss fight. This was unbelievably hard to do with minimum button presses, but I eventually came up with this. Jump here with A to collect 3 boom rock balls, press ZR 3 times here to throw the boom rocks into this precise place on the boss, then press A again to collect another 3 boom rock balls, and press ZR 3 more times to throw the boom rocks into their head. This narrowly avoids being hit by a laser due to us forcing second phase. As there is now more green poison surrounding them, the final hits are extremely precise. We press A to jump and get 3 more boom rock balls, and then press ZR twice and press and hold ZR on the final one, which does just enough damage to defeat them. After that, we dive punch into the burger switch by pressing B. Now we just make our way up to the top of the Ferris wheel, grab the key, punch it, and then break the purple stake before dropping down to the next sublayer. Once down here, we wait for these enemies to melt the bars, push some sand into these enemies above us to clear the path forward, and then climb up this goal to get up here instead of hand clapping to raise some sand. Now we just drop down to begin the fight with Muckety Mug. This boss is ridiculously hard to do without button presses, but basically we would just grab some sand, wait for them to jump around until they were tired, and then swing sand into the green poison and then into them. I had to do this so many times in each phase in order to dissolve enough muck to get the chance to punch them. But after a very long and tedious battle, we finally defeat them. We then jump down and progress to the next layer. That's feast layer done with 19 inputs. In the Forbidden layer, we make our way towards this tower and climb up. Usually you talk to this Securitone and pay them some gold, which takes up a lot of A presses by skipping dialogue. So instead, we transform into the Ostrich Bananza, press and hold A and then fly towards this floating block. Then we press right on the D-pad to switch to the Snake Bananza, let go of A to jump up, and then quickly press left on the D-pad to switch back to the Ostrich before flying over to the island above. After that, we skip talking to the next Securitone by flying to this floating block, then flying to this floating island, and then flying to the next main island. The gap between here and the place we need to go next is far too wide for any more shenanigans. So we bite the bullet and pay the final Securitone 9,999 gold, costing us 8 A button presses. We now bait this cannon into shooting at us, which creates a platform. We then walk across it, stand on this rotating platform in the middle, and then bait the cannon once again to make another platform towards the main island. We walk across and drop down. These concrete walls are usually a piece of cake with the Kong Bananza, but switching to them would cost way too many wasted inputs. So instead we grab some gold, punch it into the first wall, and then proceed to punch concrete debris into the subsequent walls to destroy them. Next we transform into the Ostrich Bananza to fly over to these floating islands before flying over to the big main island. We can now let go of ZL and walk towards the final boss fight with Void Kong. This part is actually quite tricky. As we're still holding ZR, we can hit Void Kong and then grab some sand before pressing ZR to throw it at him across the gap. We now stand on this platform dodging his many aerial attacks, which slowly destroys the makeshift bridge, until we get to him, climb off, punch him, climb back on, and do it all over again until we once again reach him and punch him. We now have to press ZR to grab some more sand, and then press ZR again to throw it so that we can get to the main island. We now just break all 3 Terror Voiders before making our way towards Void Kong and using motion controls to beat him up. Once defeated, King K. Rool wakes up and we chase him down the hole. That's Forbidden Layer done with 14 inputs. The planet course starts out relatively simple. We just walk over to minecart 1 and press A, walk over to minecart 2 and press A, dodge these flying enemies whilst walking on this moving path, then walk over to minecart 3 and press A, and then walk over to minecart 4 and press A. Then we face our first major hurdle in this layer. Basically, you're supposed to downward punch these buttons to break these thorns, but instead we make this golden enemy jump backwards and explode, die ourselves, and then keep repeating until a big enough hole is created for us to drop down. Once down here, we press B to downward punch into the button, and then bait this guy into blowing up as well. And once there's a big enough hole, we make it to this downward punch button. As there's no more golden enemies to explode, we have to climb up the side of the button and press B to dive punch into it. Now we just drop down and climb into minecart 5 and press A. Next we can walk past all of these enemies, climb the side of this metal grate at the end, and climb up to get just enough height to enter the barrel before pressing A to fire. Now we fight Stomp and Clomper again, and to do so we press left on the D-pad twice to transform into the Kong Bananza, which is essential for breaking this boss's exterior. With the Kong Bananza, we make light work of the boss and move on to minecart 6, where we press A, and then minecart 7, where we press A again. After this, the path is covered in thorns, so we break this box, press and hold ZR to grab this block, and then press and hold ZL to surf turf. We go down this thorny path, and once at this part with the golden wall, we bait this TNT guy into constantly running into the wall until eventually there's enough room for us to get through. After surfing past the next bit, we let another TNT guy hit us off the block before punching through the gold wall and getting into minecart 8 and pressing A. Now is the enemy rush section, which is made pretty easy with the Kong Bananza and the fact that we're still holding ZR and can keep picking up stones and gold to defeat these enemies. After that, we make our way to minecart 9 and press A. We make our way to the final minecart, which is blocked by this ball. So we transform into the Kong Bananza, press Y to punch the ball out of the way, and then climb into the minecart before pressing A. Now we just make our way towards K. Rool. This boss fight is actually pretty easy with the Kong Bananza, as we can just dodge the big balls and punch the small balls back to stun him. After doing this a bunch and just using motion controls to punch a bunch, we easily defeat him. We then talk to the Bananium route, which takes 6 more button presses before it takes us up towards... It turns out that K. Rool is still alive and is trying to kill us once again. Usually you just grab some banana blocks from the ground and chuck them at him, but instead we go on the defensive and dodge all his attempts to hit us, until the very end where the game requires us to press ZR to throw a chunk at him. Once at the surface, we press right on the D-pad twice to transform into the Ostrich Bananza so that we can fly up and over this gap. We then climb this wall, which is periodically blocked by some stone, which we're just barely able to break in time by shaking the Joy-Cons like there's no tomorrow. Once at the top, we press left on the D-pad to switch to the zebra so that we can walk across this bridge. Once across, we press left on the D-pad twice to switch into the Elephant Bananza, and we then press ZR to suck up all the mush that's blocking the path forward. At the end of the path is a barrel, which we climb into by walking over this poor fractone. The barrel automatically shoots us up this time, so there's no need for any inputs here. At the top, another ball blocks the way forward, but instead of switching to the Kong Bananza and punching it with Y, we instead press left on the D-pad twice to switch to the Ostrich Bananza and fly over to this wall. We then climb along it to get to this tower before climbing all the way up and breaking the stone blocking the way. Once at the top, we press left on the D-pad again to switch to the Zebra Bananza so that we can walk across these falling platforms and damage Bruce through some mush. This is why the freezer layer is needed for this run, as bypassing all of these would eat up so many inputs without the Zebra Bananza. Once at the end, we walk into this barrel and get shot up automatically towards the real final boss. We can now let go of ZL. Once in the fight, we press left on the D-pad to switch to the Kong Bananza, and the first phase of the boss is pretty much the same as the last one. What differentiates it though is the second phase, where K. Rool shoots a bunch of balls on the ground, which covers the entire arena with mush. On top of that, a bunch of mush arms come out of the ground and come at you like a wave. But the nail in the coffin is the mush attacks K. Rool does after, where you're required to have room to dodge, which is something we can't do if the arena is still covered in mush. This then becomes impossible to do with the Kong Bananza, so instead we press left on the D-pad to switch to the Elephant Bananza. On one hand, this gives us the ability to suck up all the mush, making it so that we can actually survive the wave of mush arms, and makes us able to walk around the arena freely, but on the other hand, we now do barely any damage to the boss, as we can no longer punch the small balls back, plus our punches do way less damage compared to the Kong Bananza. So the routine was, once the balls were on the ground, stand right next to the center one, then suck up the bottom of the mush arm to dodge them, and then dodge all of the mush arm attacks that K. Rool does afterwards. Once he's done with that, he'll shoot out a big ball. This is our only chance to attack him, so we dodge the ball and shake the Joy-Cons like there's no tomorrow to punch him. Once he jumps away though, he'll shoot the balls onto the ground once again, and the cycle continues. This genuinely takes forever, with us waiting, sucking up mush, dodging attacks, and wailing on him endlessly. But eventually, with an unbelievable amount of patience, resilience, and perseverance, we finally defeat King K. Rool.
We're breaking through, down to the core, no stopping us, not anymore. Inside the storm, I found the
there you have it. That's Donkey Kong Bonanza beaten with only 290 button presses, which was honestly a lot lower than I originally thought. And a whopping 152 of that total was purely skipping dialogue, which is genuinely insane to me. Anyways, here's the breakdown. If you enjoyed this, then please leave a like, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!